Welcome to MidLIFE Matters, where we celebrate women's wisdom and wit. I'm Georgian Lussier, your host, and I'm delighted to introduce today's guest, Evelyn Robles-Rivas. She is the Supervisor of Language and Community Relations in Meriden, Connecticut, and she's here to share a fascinating story of her own growth and development and how she helps others. Welcome, Evelyn.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. Now, you wear several hats, including English as a second language. You oversee teachers, you identify and provide services and resources to the community. So you're a busy lady, a lot of diversity. And what do you find most rewarding about this work?
Well, it's in my current job as a Meriden supervisor, I find it extremely rewarding, making a difference for kids. The majority of the families that I work with are families of English learners. So there's students that are coming from all over the world, the majority Spanish speaking, that are coming to Meriden, hoping to get the best educational experiences. And my job is to provide the support, make sure that they continue developing the first language, but at the same time, transition to English. So it's extremely rewarding. It's a way of working with the students, with the families, and also with teachers, equipping teachers to work with these students and address the needs of them, not only academically, but also linguistically. Okay. So definitely making a difference of their life is extremely rewarding.
And how long have you been doing this role that you're in?
This is actually my 4th year in Meriden. I started my teaching career in Waterbury, and then I moved to New Haven. And then 4 years ago, I came back home to Meriden.
And what do you find some of the key challenges are in this role?
Well, now more than ever, after the pandemic, right, we have experienced a lot of great challenges in terms of how to have access to education, and the schools were closed. And not all students have access to technology. Not students have access to the educational opportunities. So it was very difficult, especially for our English learners. It was really difficult to navigate the situation of technology, language, and at the same time dealing with the academic challenges that they had. Through the pandemic, we were able to see many obstacles that were impeding our kids to learn well. I'm glad schools were able to open. And also one of the challenges that I have seen is, of course, the social emotional need. Like families are struggling, and sometimes they don't know how to work with their kids at home or how to best support them at home. So that's definitely a challenge as well. So educators, more than ever, needs to be extremely nurturing, extremely supportive in school, because sometimes we have to do a lot more than what we used to do many years ago.
And what age students?
We provide support for students from kindergarten to 12th grade, elementary, middle, and high school.
And how many schools is that in Meriden?
13 schools.
Wow.
Yes, we have 8 elementary schools, 3 middle schools, and then 2 high schools.
Your day never gets boring.
Oh, definitely not.
Sure.
Yeah.
And what do you consider to be a requirement to be a successful administrator, that part of your role?
Now I am a district supervisor, but for almost 15 years, I was a building administrator. Okay. So I think that one of the most important things for administrators to develop is the ability to build relationship. I think relationship is everything. You definitely have to get to know the people that you're working with, the teachers, the school staff, the parents, the community, and of course, most important, the student. But I think it's really, really important to get to know the people that you're working with, because then you can identify their strength, and that's how you build your team. For me, it was really important to develop a community of learners in my building. It's not just the teacher's learning, it's the students' learning, the community learning, even myself. I think that we have opportunities to learn every day. And to be able to address the needs of all students, you really need to have a team. I mean, an administrator cannot do it by themselves. It can't. You have to have great teachers, committed teachers. You definitely need the support of the families, the parent, and build up on that, because it takes a team to work with students, definitely. And managing resources. Sometimes we have less, and we have to do a lot with less.
So they have to be organized and practical and mindful of what's available at their disposal.
Absolutely.
Right? And then I
Absolutely.
imagine you have like paraprofessionals and support staff, like even in the buildings and so forth, so that having everyone keyed in with.
Absolutely. Each person in the building has a role, right? But each person in the building contributes to the learning of a student. The custodians in the building, the cafeteria workers, I mean, they're part of a team. You build a community of learners, and you build a community of people that have their strength and their ability to make a difference in the life of all students that we receive.
And your initial goal and training was in accounting, right? So you didn't picture yourself being an educator. And how did that shift occur?
I had the opportunity to study and do my bachelor's degree in Puerto Rico. As you may know, I was born and raised in Puerto Rico. I'm part of the public school system of Puerto Rico. So when I started my undergrad, I actually pursued my career in management and accounting. I really want to become an accountant. And I finished my bachelor's degree, I graduated, and when I moved to Connecticut, first of all, I had family here. So I was living in Puerto Rico with my mom, and my mom said, well, let's go to Connecticut, let's go to the United States, and maybe you can just go and take your exam there and become an accountant. And that's what I did. I found a job as a bookkeeper in one of the accounting firms in Hartford, and I just didn't like it. I didn't picture myself sitting at a table doing numbers for such a long time.
Right.
I couldn't do it. And it was a coincidence that I actually went to a concert, a Roy Brown concert in New Haven, and I found the supervisor of the VOTEC system at that time, and they were in a tremendous need of teachers. That happened in about 1992. And he asked me, would you like to be a teacher? Would you like to be a math teacher and help bilingual students? And I said, wow, that sounds interesting. And of course, I had the background in accounting. I did actually take some courses in education when I went for my grad. So I said, okay, well, let's see what we can do. And I went. I received I got my certification, and I started teaching, and I absolutely loved it. It was like a meant to be, like working with students, helping them, in learning through the process myself. I mean, I was a second language learner myself, right? And so it was amazing. It was an amazing experience, and I said, this is what I wanted to do.
Nice.
This is exactly what I wanted to do. And then I had my full-time job in Waterbury, and I started my teaching career from there.
So you moved from accounting to math teacher,
Yeah.
and then, the rest of the story unfolded. How has your business background helped you as you moved into administrator roles and the rest of your career?
Well, I think that is having the ability to manage budget, having the ability to manage time. Time management is definitely something that you really need to do. You have to be able to maximize resources. I mean, sometimes you have, as a building administrator, you don't have much. You don't have much money. Like always, budget is something limited, but you have to set a priority, and you have to make sure that whatever you have to work with to be able to get results, right? I think that is so important to understand time, because you really need to maximize instructional time.
Sure.
You have to make sure that students have the opportunity to be engaged in rich lessons, and but at the same time have time to breathe, to interact with one another in a very safe environment. So again, time management is so important. Budgeting is extremely important. Also, I think that in the management world, you always look at people's strength, and then you build upon that, right? There's always room for improvement. Everyone has the opportunity to grow, but they come with you with certain strengths. So you have to build upon that strength to build capacity within the team that you have. So that is something that I always take into consideration.
And I imagine many people that go into teaching don't necessarily have that business background training. And so that I can understand would really have been kind of a part of your toolkit that really enabled you to bring that strength. I mean, as much as it was a different career, all those skills and orientations and the ability to set the priority and so forth, what a nice balance, that's very much needed. That many people would probably have to learn from a mentor or,
Absolutely. And at the same time, becoming an educator for me was also a learning curve for me. Like as a manager and as an accountant background, you always have the structure, you always have an agenda to cover, you always start from 1 to 10, right? You always have that. And becoming an educator, you definitely have to have a plan B or a plan C. And that's not always the case, right? But I think that was a learning curve for myself, that not everything has to be so goal oriented. There is a process and there is an opportunity for learning in every single step you go through. And in educator, you definitely have to consider that, because you're not always working with things. You're always with people. And sometimes you definitely have to make adjustments. There's always some gray areas. Not everything is just all black and white. There's always some gray areas that you have to consider, especially when making decisions about students. Right?
So data is different than people.
Absolutely.
And it's more static. And, I could see where that would be, an element that you really needed to bring everything you had in your background and your home life and so forth, and just your personality. And appreciate that. Now, you're a first-generation college grad, and you've earned your PhD. Congratulations. And
Thank you.
20 years has gone by. That's wonderful. We're chatting about that.
Yeah.
And you mentioned that you had family here, so that's what brought you to the Meriden area. And did you surprise yourself by getting the advanced degrees?
Yes and no.
Okay.
I think that I'm the youngest in my family, and my father passed away when I was 13.
Okay.
So my mother became mom and dad, and my brothers and sisters were always very supportive of me continuing my studies. My dad always told me that you got it, you have to study, you have to prepare yourself, because you have to become independent. You cannot depend on anybody, especially men.
That's an important life lesson that Dad left you with.
So I always had that in mind. So for my mom, me going to graduate and going back to school, at least my bachelor's degree, I never thought about my master's and my PhD at that point. But having a bachelor's degree was extremely important for my mother. That was not negotiable.
Okay.
And so I always wanted to go to college, and my brothers and sisters, they decided to graduate from high school, go to get a job. And then 3 of them moved to Connecticut,
Okay.
Meriden. So they were always very supportive. So I was not surprised when I finished my bachelor degree and decided to come here. I was a little surprised that to the fact that I was actually able to go to UConn and earn my doctoral studies. Like,
Yes.
I was like, wow. And that was because I was able to get a scholarship
Nice.
through the Title IX program at that time. And that was amazing. So once I became an educator, and I started my first and my second year teaching, they said, you have to pursue your master's degree in education in order to continue your certification. And I said, okay. My husband said, go for it. And I applied at UConn for the master's program. And once I finished my master's, of course, I have my provisional educator certification. And then at that point, I said, wait a minute, I think I can do more.
I'm just going to keep going.
Yes, I
Yeah.
think I can do more. I think I can. As a teacher, you make a difference in the life of the student that you have in your class, right?
Right.
But once you become an administrator and then you become an assistant principal, a principal, then you can make a difference in the life of more students, because
Yes.
then you're making more decisions that are not necessarily a classroom decision. We're talking about school. So I said, I think I can do that. And I had great mentors. That's another thing that definitely made an impact in the decisions that I made at that point. I had building principals that were extremely supportive. That they saw things that probably didn't see. I didn't see. And they saw the potential, and more than ever, we have a growing population of Latinos in Connecticut in general, and we really needed to have representation in schools, in buildings, even at central office, representations of Latinos so students can see themselves, right? And that's how I continue my studies. I was persistent. Very persistent. Sometimes, a little nervous, but then once I finished and I was able to graduate, I was like, wow, I did. I was surprised. You don't think about that when you're going through the process. I think it's at the end when you actually receive a degree, or it's like I said, wow, I did it, right?
Yes. And you have shared that your mom always encouraged your education, as you've said, non-negotiable.
Yes.
She herself didn't have the benefit of education, but valued it very highly, right? And you had those
Incredible.
messages from your dad. And so what are some of your early memories of her and how she encouraged that persistency?
Well, my mother is the youngest of 6.
Okay.
So she had 5 brothers. All of them are older. So my grandmother became blind. So my mom went to school up to 6th grade.
Okay.
And then she decided to stay home to help mom and dad, and also her brothers. So, but she, even though she stopped in 6th grade, I feel my mother is so full of knowledge. Like she loved to read. She was always reading. She's a very faithful woman. Like she's always praying the rosary and extremely faithful. And she knew the value of education and how powerful and again, that was not non-negotiable. When my father was no longer with us, she said, well, he's not here, but I am. And she was always making sure that I had food at the table, my clothing was beautiful, more beautiful and clean, but my only responsibility was to study.
Okay.
And that's how she did it. I remember her in Puerto Rico, working part-time, selling flowers, vegetables, anything she could to make sure that we were okay. and that I didn't need to do anything else but study.
That's a wonderful gift. Yes, that
Definitely.
focus. Yes.
Definitely.
So tell us about your dissertation and how she was able to be part of that.
Well, that was amazing. I still remember like it was today. When I explained to Mama, right, that I was I was developing a book. And I was doing a lot of research, investigation, a lot of training. She didn't understand much, but she said, I'm going to be there. Like I said, Mom, I am going to be doing a big presentation to a committee. And if I do well, then I will get my degree. So it was like explaining always to her. So she said, I'll be there. We love fashion. We love to dress up very nice. We love to wear our makeup right. We do not get out of the house without lipstick.
Okay.
That's very important. So for my mother, that was a great opportunity just to go. So at my dissertation defense, I had two of my girls were there. They were little. I have three girls. And my mom was there. One of my sisters was there. And of course, my husband. And I remember them being part of the audience, listening to what I have to say. And she didn't understand anything. Like, she doesn't speak English. She speaks Spanish only. She understands a little bit, but so she had no clue what I was saying. But as I was doing my presentation, I was just looking at her, looking at the audience, and I was just looking at her being so attentive, being so, like, her eyes were so bright, because I know she was, I knew she was proud. It doesn't matter that she didn't understand.
Right.
And of course, once I finished my dissertation and they called me and they said, well, congratulations, Dr. Robles-Rivas. She was so proud.
Wonderful.
And my advisor went to her and said, congratulations to you too.
Wonderful.
Because it was the work, it was her. It was her work. I mean, I remember stories when I started all the preparation and the application for the program, for the PhD program. I had to take my GREs. And at that time, I remember I went to Hamden to a building, and it was in front of the computer that you needed to take the test. And of course, learning English is a process that takes years and years and years. And I mean, I have been in Connecticut for almost 30 years, and I'm still learning. Like, that's a language that you learn, forever. And I was nervous. I mean, I was going to take a test. And I remember her telling me, listen, you go and take the test. I'm going to light a candle, and I'm going to start praying the rosary. When you're done, please call me and tell me you're done, because I know you're going to do well. And I said, okay. And that's what I did. And so when I finished my test, I said, Mom, I'm done. And she said, oh, you passed. I know you passed. And that was true. I passed all my sessions of the test. Of course, I studied really hard.
Yeah.
I did. But I am sure that the power of her prayers helped a little too.
Okay. Wonderful.
So I have many stories about her, and she is 98 years old, and she's still full of energy. I hope I could be just like my mom when I grow up.
Wonderful. And speaking of growing, as you look back at your younger self, we get a chance to reflect. What advice would you give your younger self?
I will say, be a little bit more confident. I think that I project myself to be a very assertive person. But in reality, I'm always scared. And sometimes I think that reflecting on everything that happens through my life here in Connecticut, I think that sometimes I doubted myself. I said, am I sure that I'm doing the right thing? Like, especially when I was raising my family and going to school, that was a lot of hours of work, a lot of hours of commitment at work, in school, with my family. Like, you really need to have a balance. And sometimes, before I got married, I think being young and coming to another country, like you know, sometimes I just doubted myself. So I would definitely say to my younger self, just be a little bit more confident, have a little bit more faith on what you, on who you are, and what you can do.
Wonderful. And a favorite quote? Do you have a favorite quote or saying?
I do. I love Mother Teresa. And she always said, love by self is in reality not meaningful. It's meaningless. I think love needs to be connected to action. And actions need to be connected to service. That's how you show love to people. And for me, being an educator is providing a service.
Wonderful.
Like every single day you service people. You service them by smiling at them, by showing that they can do the work. You, especially the students, you see them and they have so much potential. But you really need to show them that you're there to support them. You're there to service. That I think the work of the educator is to service.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us. And please tune in to your other fascinating women on future segments of Midlife Matter. I'm Georgian Lussier, your host, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you.